The council chamber smelled like burnt ozone and regret. High Commander Vectress of the Gallene Empire sat at the observation deck, watching the blue-green planet rotate beneath their flagship. Beautiful, wasn't it? All those swirling clouds, those vast oceans, those cute little continents. Adorable, really. Absolutely adorable. Too bad it was the most terrifying rock in the known universe. Sir, the reconnaissance drones are returning, Lieutenant Morex announced, her three eyes blinking in nervous succession. They've found something. Victress didn't move, didn't even twitch. He'd been staring at Earth for 6 solar cycles now, ever since the silence happened. 6 cycles of absolute deafening quiet from a planet that had been screaming into the void for barely 2 centuries. Define something, he said. Morex's mandibles clicked. Bad sign. Movement. In the old military installations. Underground. Of course. Of course. Because the humans, those wonderful, terrible, absolutely insane primates, couldn't just die quietly like every other species. No, that would be too simple, too reasonable, too normal. The war had started 30 Earth years ago. Standard Empire expansion, nothing personal. The Gallene Empire had been spreading across the galaxy for 3,000 years, absorbing species, incorporating technology, moving on, professional, clean, efficient. Then they'd arrived at Earth. Victress remembered the initial reports. He'd laughed. Actually laughed. A species that had barely mastered interplanetary travel, still using chemical propulsion, still fighting among themselves over invisible lines on maps, and whose imaginary friend was better. The projections gave them 3 months. Maybe 4 if they got creative. That was 29 years and 8 months ago. Show me, Vectress ordered. The holographic display flickered to life. Grainy footage from Drone 4.71 showed a facility entrance, half buried in snow somewhere in the northern continent. Nothing moved. Nothing at all. Just wind and ice and silence. Then the entrance exploded outward. Not from weapons. Not from bombs. Just opened. Like a mouth. Like Earth itself was yawning. What came out made Morex step backward involuntarily. They looked like humans. Sort of. If you squinted. If you'd never actually seen a human before. They were tall, too tall, with proportions that didn't quite match the anatomical records. Their skin had a strange quality, like it was shifting between solid and something else. And their eyes. Zoom in on the optical sensors, Vectress whispered. The display complied. Those eyes, stars above. Those eyes, they glowed with a soft bioluminescence. But there was something else. Something that made every instinct scream wrong, wrong, run. Are those the humans? Morex asked. I don't know what those are, Vectress admitted. But they came from Earth. The creatures on screen moved with disturbing precision, loading equipment into transports that hadn't been there a moment ago. Where had those vehicles come from? The drones hadn't detected any power signatures, any heat, any electromagnetic radiation at all. Rewind to Mark 7.3, Vectress commanded. The footage jumped backward. Empty snow. Wind. Nothing. Forward. At quarter speed. They watched. The air rippled. Just slightly. Like heat distortion. Except it was 40 degrees below zero. The ripple expanded. And suddenly, impossibly, the transports were there, not arriving. Not materializing. Just as if they'd always been there and reality had simply forgotten to render them properly until now. That's not possible, Morex stated flatly. None of this is possible, Lieutenant. That's what makes it so perfectly human. Vectress stood, his joints aching. He was old. Too old for this. He'd been young when they'd first engaged the humans, full of confidence and proper military doctrine. The first battle had been glorious, textbook orbital bombardment of their military infrastructure, followed by surgical strikes on population centers to encourage surrender. The humans had responded by ramming a spacecraft into the flagship Destiny's Pride at 97% light speed. The civilian spacecraft, a colony transport they'd retrofitted with every fusion reactor they could bolt onto it, and a skeleton crew of 70 volunteers, 70 humans who'd pointed their ship at a vessel containing 40,000 Gallene personnel and hit the throttle while screaming something about Pearl Harbor and the Alamo. Whatever those were, the Pride had simply ceased to exist. No debris field, no rescue pods, just gone. Erased from reality by sheer kinetic fury and human spite. That's when Vectress realized they'd made a mistake. The war that followed defied every principle of strategic warfare. Humans didn't retreat. They regrouped. They didn't surrender. They adapted. Every time the Gallene forces thought they'd found a pattern, the humans changed it. Biological weapons? The humans engineered themselves immunity in 6 months. Targeted EMPs, they went analog. Orbital superiority, they went underground and turned their entire planet into a fortress, and they laughed. Stars helped them, they laughed. Victress had intercepted communications of human soldiers joking while under bombardment, sharing meals in bunkers while the world burned above them, singing songs about death and defiance and dancing skeletons. Sir? Morax's voice pulled him back. Orders? Maintain surveillance. Do not engage, Lieutenant. Make absolutely certain every ship in the fleet understands. But sir, they're unarmed. Our weapons could what? Victress snapped. Could kill them. We've been killing them. For 30 years. We've glassed their cities, poisoned their water, burned their forests, and they're still here. His voice echoed in the command center. Everyone had stopped working. All eyes on him. Victress took a breath. Do you know what happened to the Krell Armada? Morax nodded slowly. Everyone knew. The Krell had been the second species to try claiming Earth after the Gallene had softened it up. Professional courtesy and all that. They'd arrived with 600 warships, confident that the humans already weakened would fall quickly. The Krell Armada had lasted 4 days, not because the humans destroyed them, because the humans took them, boarded them. Every single ship. The Krell sent one final transmission before going silent. They're in the walls. They're in the walls. How are they? Then nothing. The ships were found later, drifting in Earth's orbit. Empty. Not a single Krell remained. Not a single body. Just empty corridors, and the lingering smell of human sweat and something the Krell sensors identified as barbecue sauce, which made absolutely no sense. The humans went quiet. 8 cycles ago, Victress continued, his voice calmer now. Every signal stopped. Every transmission. Every single one. We thought, hoped, they'd finally burned themselves out, used up their last resources. But we were wrong. He gestured at the display where those not quite human figures continued loading equipment with mechanical efficiency. They weren't dying. They were changing. Morax's translator struggled with the next question. Into what? Something worse. The display flickered. New footage. Drone 4th Order 71's last moments. The view tilted upward as something grabbed it from below. A face filled the screen. Human features but wrong. Too symmetrical. Too perfect. Uncanny Valley made flesh. It smiled. Then it spoke directly into the camera. Somehow knowing the Gallene were watching, its voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't exist in atmosphere. Tell Victress we remember. Tell him we've improved. Tell him we'll be visiting soon. The feed cut to static. Every alarm in the ship began screaming at once. Multiple contacts, the scanner officer shrieked. Appearing from nowhere. 20 ships. 50. Hundreds. Victress spun to the observation window. Empty space. Beautiful and vast and terrible. Suddenly wasn't empty anymore. They looked like Earth's old ships. Primitive things. Metal and fury, nothing special. Except they appeared from nowhere. Materializing in formation around the Gallene fleet like sharks circling prey. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter pattern delta. The fleet moved. 300 vessels. Pride of the Gallene Empire. Executing perfect tactical dispersal. The human ships matched them. Instantly. Perfectly. As if they'd known what the Gallene would do before the orders were even given. How? Morax demanded. Victress knew. Oh, he knew. He'd read the reports. The last reports from Earth before the silence. Genetic engineering. Neural interfaces. Hive consciousness experiments. The humans hadn't just been fighting. They'd been transcending. Incoming transmission. The communications officer announced. Voice trembling. On screen. The face that appeared made Victress's blood run cold. Which was impressive because his species didn't have blood in the traditional sense. It was human. Female presenting if the records were accurate. But her eyes. Those glowing, knowing eyes. Hello, Victress, she said. And her voice was wrong. Layered with harmonics and echoes like 1,000 people speaking at once. Remember me? Lieutenant Angela Reeves, 3rd Fleet Defensive Operations. You killed my family. Took my home. Earned my world. Vitresh did remember. Reeves had been the commander of the defense station over New Geneva. She'd held off 3 Gallene destroyers for 18 hours with a crew of 30 before finally being overrun. They'd found her body in the wreckage, except here she was. Alive. We've learned so much since you visited, Reeves continued, that terrible smile never wavering. About genetics. About consciousness. About what happens when you push a species past every breaking point, and they refuse to break. What do you want? Victress managed. Want? She laughed, and it sounded like music and madness. We wanted to be left alone. But that ship has sailed, crashed, and been repurposed into a weapon, hasn't it? So now we want you to run. Run, Vectress. Take your fleet. Leave our system. Tell every species you find that Earth is closed. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what we became. A pause. Those glowing eyes boring through the screen, through the ship, through him. And if you ever come back, we'll show you what humanity learned about creativity, spite, and the beautiful things we can do with the space between atoms. The transmission ended. Vectress stood frozen. Around him, his crew waited for orders. The human ships hadn't moved, hadn't powered weapons, just waited. Sir? Morax whispered. What do we do? Vectress thought about the Krell. About 30 years of war against an enemy that turned every attack into a lesson, every defeat into innovation. About the fact that they'd finally gone silent, not because they'd lost, but because they were building something new, something that could appear from nowhere, something that could predict their movements, something that wore human faces but had transcended humanity itself. He thought about pride, about the Empire, about the 300 ships under his command and the millions of lives they represented. Then he thought about those eyes. Signal the fleet, he said quietly. Plot jump coordinates for home space. Maximum distance. Sir, we can and we will. He turned to face his crew. We lost this war 30 years ago. We just didn't know it yet. The Gallene fleet began powering their FTL drives. The human ships watched, motionless, patient as gravestones. As the jump sequence initiated, Vectress took one last look at Earth. That beautiful, terrible, haunted blue world where humanity had died and something new had been born from the ashes. Note in the logs, he said. Earth is quarantined. Forbidden space. Any ship that approaches is on their own. And if they ask why, sir? Vectress didn't answer. He just watched as reality folded around his ship and they ran like every instinct screamed they should have done 30 years ago. Behind them, Earth continued spinning. Silent and patient, waiting. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime had seen better days. Actually, it had seen better centuries. The Grand Assembly Hall, built to showcase the unity of 47 species across 12 sectors, now hosted exactly 9 delegates. 9 terrified representatives huddled around a table designed for hundreds, watching the same footage on repeat. Earth, always Earth. Council Speaker Thrandall, a Voxeri with scales that had turned gray from stress rather than age, paused the playback. Again, for the 17th time. The image froze on Angela Reeves's face, those impossible eyes staring through the camera. This cannot be real, Ambassador Kelvin muttered. The Tormund representative had been saying that for 3 hours now. His denial was impressive in its persistence. It's real, Vectress confirmed. He'd been summoned to testify. Lucky him. I was there. My entire fleet was there. We ran. The Gallene Empire doesn't run. Counselor Fex hissed, her feathers ruffling with indignation. The Gallene Empire is smart, Vectress corrected. Running from a battle you can't win isn't cowardice. It's survival. Something I recommend we all consider very seriously right now. Thrandall's translator crackled. You're suggesting we abandon an entire sector because one species underwent some genetic modifications? Genetic modifications? Vectress stood so quickly his chair clattered backward. Is that what you think happened? They didn't get modifications. They evolved. Mid-war. Mid-battle. They weaponized their own extinction and came out the other side as something we don't have words for. Please, Commander, sit. No. The word echoed in the vast chamber. No. You need to understand. We spent 30 years fighting humans. The species that still argued about whether their planet was round, who fought wars over whose mythology was correct, who nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times before they even left their atmosphere. And they beat us. Not through superior technology. Not through numbers. Through sheer, absolute, insane refusal to quit. He gestured at the frozen image of Reeves. Do you know what the last human transmission said before the silence? Before they went dark for 8 cycles? No one answered. It was a single phrase broadcast from every remaining settlement, every bunker, every damaged ship still in orbit. Just 3 words. Not done yet. The silence that followed was profound. Ambassador Kelvin broke it. So they adapted. Fine. That doesn't make them invincible. We have resources they can't match. The combined fleet would die, Vectress interrupted flatly. And you know what the truly horrifying part is? I don't think they'd even feel bad about it anymore. The humans we fought 30 years ago, they felt everything. Rage, grief, determination, joy. They were messy and emotional and chaotic. These new ones, they're cold, efficient, They've burned out everything except purpose. Counselor Fex leaned forward. What purpose? Survival. And making absolutely certain no one ever threatens Earth again. Thranduil activated another display. Star charts. Red zones spreading across the projection like infection. 17 scout ships have gone missing in the last 3 cycles. All in sectors adjacent to the Sol system. Not destroyed. Just gone. No debris. No distress calls. They're taking them, Vectress said. Studying them. Learning everything about every species that gets too close. Speculation, Kelvin snorted. Is it? Tell me, Ambassador, what happened to the Freeling expedition? Kelvin's expression went carefully blank. The Freeling had been a research vessel. Unarmed. Scientific. They'd approached Earth broadcasting peace intentions, requesting dialogue with whatever remained of humanity. The ship had returned. Empty. Not damaged. Not looted. Just empty. Every crew member gone. And in the captain's quarters, written on the wall in what analysis confirmed was human blood, we said close. The recording had included something else. Security footage from the ship's final moments. Humans boarding. Not through airlocks. Through the walls. Moving through solid matter like it wasn't there. Their forms flickering between states of existence. They'd walked through the ship collecting Freeling crew members one by one. Gently, almost kindly, carrying them into impossible spaces between the atoms and leaving nothing behind but silence. The Freeling proves nothing, Kelvin insisted. But his voice wavered. It proves, Vectress said slowly, that they've mastered physics we don't understand. Technology we can't counter. They've turned themselves into something that exists partially outside normal space. Do you comprehend what that means? He didn't wait for an answer. It means walls don't stop them. Distance doesn't stop them. Our weapons designed to hit targets in this dimension probably pass right through them. We're fighting an enemy that's literally learned to step sideways through reality. Thranduil's scales rippled. There must be limitations, weaknesses. Everything has weaknesses. Then find them, Vectress challenged. Send your fleet to Earth. Test their defenses. See what happens. No one volunteered. The display shifted again. This time showing recent observations from long-range probes. Earth looked different. The planet's electromagnetic signature had changed. The atmosphere had new chemical compositions. Structures visible from orbit that matched no known architecture. They're terraforming their own planet, the science officer's report noted, altering it to match their new biology. Estimated completion unknown. Purpose unknown. Threat level extreme. They're building a fortress, Vectress translated, turning Earth into something that can defend itself. Maybe something that can't be attacked in any conventional sense. Ambassador Kelvin pulled up another file. His hands shook slightly. We intercepted a transmission. 3 days ago. Audio only. It was singing. He played it. The sound that filled the chamber wasn't quite music. It had melody, rhythm, harmony. But underneath frequencies that made everyone present feel sick. Wrong. Like reality itself was slightly off-key. And the words translated from English. We are the ones who remained. We are the fire that wouldn't die. We are the children of Earth. And we have become. Try us again. Please try us again. We've prepared such wonders to show you. The singing faded into laughter. Thousands of voices perfectly synchronized, laughing with joy and madness in something that might have been anticipation. Then silence. Kelvin stopped the playback. That was broadcast on every frequency. Every channel. As if they wanted us to hear it. Wanted us to know they're ready. Waiting. Hoping we'll come back. Because they're not defending anymore. Vectress realized the pieces clicking into place. They're hunting. They've turned Earth into bait. A trap. They want someone to attack so they can test their new capabilities. Fex's feathers flattened against her skull. That's insane. Yes, Vectress agreed. Perfectly. Absolutely. Human insane. They've transcended their biology but kept their psychology. All that creativity. All that spite. All that terrifying human enthusiasm. But now backed by technology that breaks physics. Thranduil stood. His full height impressive, even diminished by age. The Council's decision then. We quarantine Sol system. Forbidden zone. Any ship that enters does so against all warnings and receives no support. Agreed. The others chorused relief evident. And if they expand? Fex asked quietly. If they decide Earth isn't enough? No one had an answer. Vectress did. Then we run. Again we keep running until either they stop chasing or we find somewhere they can't reach. Those are the options. Except the meeting adjourned in uncomfortable silence. Delegates filed out already composing reports for their respective governments. Stories of the humans. Warnings to spread across the galaxy. Vectris remained staring at the star chart. At that one yellow star so ordinary, so unremarkable, now marked with every warning symbol the council database contained. Sir? Morax appeared at his shoulder. She'd waited outside during the testimony. Order, plot a course for the outer colonies. Maximum distance from Sol. We're retiring. Retiring? Sir, you're the Empire's most experienced. Exactly, experienced enough to know when to quit. He turned away from Earthstar. I've fought enough wars, Morax. Lost enough ships. Seen enough impossible things. Let the young fools dream of glory. I'm going somewhere quiet where I can drink fermented grain and try to forget those eyes. They walked toward the docking bay. Behind them, the chamber's displays continued cycling through images of Earth. Beautiful. Deadly. Change. Morax hesitated. Sir, do you think they'll expand? Really? Vectris considered. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Humans always were territorial, protective of their home. Perhaps they'll be content to sit on Earth and defend it forever, and if not, then the galaxy learns a very important lesson about leaving primitive species alone, about not kicking the hornet's nest, about what happens when you push a creative, stubborn, absolutely batshit crazy species into a corner and force them to adapt or die. They reached his shuttle. Morax paused at the airlock. What do you think they'll do? Long-term? Vectris looked back one last time. Through the station's massive windows, stars glittered. Peaceful. Eternal. Somewhere out there, Earth spun in its quarantine. Silent and patient. I think, he said slowly, they'll wait, build, prepare. And if anyone is stupid enough to threaten them again, they'll demonstrate exactly what 30 years of survival evolution can accomplish. They'll make examples. Warnings written in the wreckage of entire fleets. And if no one threatens them, then maybe in a few hundred years they'll venture out. Cautious. Changed. Ready for anything. And the galaxy will have to decide if it wants to meet them as friends or repeat our mistakes. He stepped into the shuttle. Either way, I won't be around to see it. And that, Lieutenant, might be the only mercy left in this universe. The shuttle departed Nexus Prime, jumping away from the core systems, heading for the frontier where news traveled slowly and Earth was just a story. Just a myth. Just another monster tale to frighten young soldiers. But Vectris knew better. 3 months later, the warnings went out. Official council decree. Sala system. Forbidden. Approach at own risk. No rescue. No support. Quarantine by unanimous decision. The warnings included footage. Reeves's face. The singing. Images of Earth's new structures. Everything calculated to terrify. Most species listened. Some didn't. The Krell Confederacy, proud and aggressive, decided humans were a resource to exploit. Imagine having soldiers that could phase through walls. They sent a battle group to Earth with nets and sedatives, and plans for genetic harvesting. The ships arrived. The ships never left. 3 weeks later, every Krell military installation received a package. No return address. No explanation. Just a box. Inside, the Krell admiral's uniform. Cleaned. Pressed. Folded with military precision. And a note in perfect Krell script. He volunteered to stay. They all did. Earth is beautiful this time of year. Visit any time. We'll be ready. The Krell Confederacy issued new orders. Sol system. Avoid. Forever. The stories spread. Earth. The haunted world. Earth. Where humans died and something new was born. Earth. Where ships went missing and came back empty. Earth. Which sang in frequencies that made reality hurt. Earth. Which waited. In his retirement colony on the edge of nowhere, Vectris heard the stories. Drank his fermented grain. Watched the stars. Sometimes, late at night when the moons were dark, he thought he could hear it. Faint. Impossible. That singing. Those layered voices. That sound of a species that had looked at extinction and said, not today, with such conviction that reality itself bent to accommodate them. He destroyed the Ansible in his quarters. Severed all connections to the network. If Earth ever came calling, he didn't want to know. Didn't want to see those eyes again, because he remembered Angela Reeves's smile. That perfect, terrible smile. And he remembered her final words, visit any time, not a warning. An invitation. Earth was open for business. The question was whether anyone was brave enough or stupid enough to accept. Vectris poured another drink. Stared at stars that suddenly seemed less eternal. Less peaceful. Somewhere out there, humanity had become something new. Something patient. Something that had all the time in the universe to wait for the next fool who forgot that Earth, That insignificant blue world had never learned to quit. The galaxy would remember eventually. They always did. Usually too late. Vectress raised his glass to the stars, to Earth, to the species that refused to die quietly. Here's to you humans, he whispered. May you stay exactly where you are. Forever. Please. The stars didn't answer. But somewhere, impossibly far away, he could have sworn he heard laughter.